And it's good. It's good to have you here. This is not an easy task, at least not for me, to try to build a model in front of people with input. So usually it takes me a while to think about this problem. But we got a great start 2 months ago, thanks to Pascal, who really did significant work in putting together some very nice diagrams for us from the reading that we had all done about peer bullying. And I want to start by showing you some of those diagrams. Then I want to tell you that now we have two pre-college SIG leadership groups, one for the Americas and Europe and the Near and the Middle East, and then another for the Pacific, countries on the Pacific Rim. And we have each group has attempted to start a model for the peer bullying. And the first group came up with something, and we were just barely wanting to start. The first group came up with something that, of course, Emre in 2 seconds made operational so we could see what it did. And then the second group came up with a slight modification. And again, Emre made it operational. And we can show you those, but I think what I would like to do is start with a couple of stock and flow diagrams to allow all of you to give your input. We didn't want to give you something necessarily. We wanted to have at least an idea that we could do something, but we didn't want to give you something and have you think, okay, we've got to start this way, because we don't. We just wanted to have something to start with, because it's really hard to start with a blank sheet of paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some of Pascal's diagrams, which one we decided to focus on, just to bring it back, because it's been 2 months since we've worked on this, just to bring it back to your mind. And then I think I'll go to our just stock, the diagram that was on the advertisement for this, and see how we want to go. All right, so I am going to share my screen. All right, so this is the handout that we have on, that Pascal gave us. He produced for us. And thank you, Pascal, because it's just beautifully done. A lot of work in this. For the peer modeling, the peer bullying model that we were talking about 2 months ago. So this slide just was kind of a very high overview on bullying incidents in schools and the roles of individuals that might be important. The next talked a little bit more about the bully and the students who are bullied, and there's more detail in here specifically about students who were bullied. The next, actually, I'm going to go to the fourth one here. The fourth one focuses on the individuals involved in bullying, the bully and all the things that possibly can affect the bully. But this one is talking about bullying incidents in a school. It's talking about the impact of the classroom in the school that impact the students, including the bullies and those who are bullied, and the school organization. So then we thought about, who is our audience for this model? And we came up with, we want to try to develop a model that schools could use, administrators or teachers could use to better understand school bullying. And so we thought this particular focus might be more practical for our audience if we developed a model that essentially encompassed the bullying situation and teachers and administrators and how they might affect more positive behavior. We thought this might be the focus of our model. So in our first meeting, our first SIG leadership meeting, one of our stocks was on bullying incidents, and the other one was on teachers, because we figured that was the most direct line to the bully that might make a student feel alienated or welcomed into the classroom. So at school. So teachers seen as caring, and teachers seen as uncaring. We thought we wanted that to be involved in the initial model. And I suggested, and I think everyone thought it might be a good idea, that we just try to take two pieces and connect them with a feedback. Now, there's a lot going on over here in school organization, but we didn't want to add too many stocks at the beginning. We wanted two main ideas, and then we wanted to connect those two main ideas with a feedback. And then we could start adding more. That was our idea. Okay. Please feel free to interrupt, because I'm just trying to give you some background right now, but I want this to be a conversation, and I'm hoping that it will be. What I think I should have done, which I didn't do, I should have copied this. I'm going to do that right now. And I am going to make a copy of this diagram. I thought I had this all prepared, but it's been a little hectic.
Diana, could you tell me in this graphic, what's the meaning of dashed versus non-dashed and green versus red?
I will give that to you, Pascal, because this is a software that he uses often for concept maps.
So this is called the South Beach modeling notation. It's a creativity and problem solving notation, and it's a generalization of something called trees, which is a Russian method of design, an innovation of design. And we look, the red is harmful, like the red ovals are harmful things, and the green are helpful or things. So the dotted lines means possibility. So like for example, poor student-teacher relationships possibly contributes to bullying incidents. It's a possibility. And as we learn more about this, sometimes we can change the dotted to solid. So this is basically what was known at the time I was doing this. And we were doing this from a study by the National Academy of Sciences on bullying that a friend of mine gave to us. And we just went through it and we drew these diagrams. So do you have any other questions about the diagram? I have a link to.
Kim, do you have any other questions, or did that satisfy your question?
He mentioned the name of the software at the very beginning, but I didn't catch it.
It's called South Beach Inc. INC.
INC? South Beach. Thank you.
And I think, I can give the link. I can put the link in the chat. It's very worthwhile to have. I've used it in a lot of things, especially in system dynamics and in health also. I'll put a link in the chat.
Okay, so this is the focus. And what I I don't really want to show you these other models. I don't know. What do you think, Emre? Should we show the models or should we just start with the, I don't want you to feel like you have to work from what we did. And so I want to keep it as open to all of you as possible for your own creation of the model. Does anyone have any feelings about whether you want to see what we came up with and then start on our own, back up and start with just the two concepts and see how we want to connect it?
I think,
Or
yeah, I think
what
we
do you
should
think?
start, I just think we should look at what we did. So what we did, you know,
Okay.
just to get a feel for what we did, because it's hard
Okay.
to start from scratch on something like this.
Okay, so this was the first model that we created. It was with bullying incidents that could increase or decrease, so it's a biflow, and number of teachers perceived as uncaring and number of teachers perceived as caring. And this obviously can flow back and forth. And then we added up these teachers and total teachers. The more bullying incidents, we figured the school was going to try to make more change, somehow working with the teachers and try to essentially move uncaring teacher environments over to more caring environments. And then we thought to finish the feedback, we would look at the percentage of caring teachers to the total, and that would have an impact on the number of bullying teachers. I'm sorry, on the number of bullying incidents. And Emre, who does this marvelous interface, we're starting out with 75 bullying incidents, and there are more uncaring teachers than caring teachers. And the change fraction for changing bullying incidents is 10%. And this graphical converter here is the simplest possible. It's probably not a line, but to make this operational, it was just a starting place. The more bullying incidents, the more pressure there is to talk to the teachers to see what they can do to improve the situation. So as you move to the right on number of bullying incidents, the pressure is here to try to reduce uncaring teachers and help them learn how to make their classroom more caring. And so when we run this, it's very simplistic. Because of this graphical converter here, everything happens in a positive way. We have fewer bullying incidents. All teachers become caring. And so it was a start. And then in our second, we thought, well, you know, let's talk about the actual students instead of the bullying incidents. And so we thought there were students who didn't bully. This is obviously kind of an aging chain. Students who didn't bully, and maybe some of them had the potential to bully, and some of those who potentially could bully did actually be bullying students. And this graphical converter is the same as before. And this feedback from number of caring teachers, the more caring teachers, we pull the bullying students back to being potential bullies, and we pull the potential bullies back to being non-bullying. And you can see here, again, it's very simplistic. I will show you that these are all straight lines, so that is not realistic, but we just wanted something to see if it could work. And here, because we had so many bullying students, well, actually, we only had 25, so that was not so bad, but we had a lot of uncaring teachers. And so the number of bullying students increased because the environment was not very friendly. And the number of non-bullying students decreased because kids are moving to the left in this diagram until you get enough caring teachers that it impacts in a positive way, moving students to the right instead of to the left. Again, very simplistic. But what we wanted to do was, do you have any, I mean, this was just the beginning. How could we possibly connect the teacher, the environment, the teacher environment, essentially the classroom and the area just outside the classroom, and the idea of bullying? And since the caring and uncaring came from the diagram, we thought it was appropriate to use that in here. But if we include students instead of incidents, it gives us a lot of places to intervene for policy, for school policy. So we thought it was more important to include the students down here instead of the bullying incidents. The other thing we did was to separate this byflow into an inflow and an outflow, because policy might affect each path differently. But we didn't want to give you something that was really overwhelming to start with. We wanted something as simple as possible.
So this is one effect that could occur, that could contribute to whether someone's bullied or stops being bullied.
Right.
And so that means that you can just add other effects here that
Yes.
you might be
Yes.
important, and then have a relative say, well, this is more important than this, and have a relative degree
Right.
of that. So that's sort of a nice way to start the process if you want to.
The other thing is, these graphical converters are very, very simplistic. We don't think these are straight lines. And so we would probably, and they're also not dimensionless multipliers, which we would probably want to make into dimensionless multipliers, but that would be another thing that would need to be fixed. So what I would like to ask you is, do you want to start with just these two stocks up here for caring and uncaring, and these three stocks down here for bullying and not bullying, and start to connect things ourselves? Or do you want to start with what we have here and build on this? Do you have opinions here? We want you to be involved in this process. That's why I wasn't going to show you this, because I thought, you feel like you have to do this. It's not the case. We can go back to basics. We could even change the original stocks. But we wanted something to start with. It's so hard to start with a blank page. Okay, folks, not everybody at once. Because if you don't say something, I'm probably just going to keep going, and which is not very helpful.
So let me ask one question, though. So we have two models here, one of bullying
Yes.
students. How would you connect them? Because this leads to incidents. So there must be some connection between the two models, right?
Right.
You have incidents which
would come off of bullying students, I think. Not all students who are actively bullies. Well, I guess we could say that bullying students would then bully at the school, because that's the only place we see it. That's the scope of our environment, is the school system.
So how many students? So there must be a percentage of among the students in the school. There's a variable which says this percent are people who are bullying, at least initially. And
we could do that. We could have total students. We could add all these together down here for total students, and we could come up with a percent of the students who are bullying. Yes, we could do that.
Which could be something that's a statistic somewhere in schools. They might say, well, these, we've seen about these many incidents. We assume these many.
I think it's about 30%. I think it's, bullying incidents tend to be in that's what I thought I read. I have to go back and double check, because it's been months since I read it.
And it's probably repeated in people who it probably has. It might be a number of, well, yeah, and there must be a ratio of incidents to students, the bullying students, because one student may bully all the time, so every incident might be the cost of 3 students. So there's something around that dynamic to connect. I was just trying to see how you would connect this to the real world, the statistics in the world. So,
Sorry, that's my tech person who just said he was finished. And I probably have internet now, but too bad because I'm not close enough to connect. Right, you're right. So do you want me to put up a diagram that we can start to change? Pascal, I mean, you were asking about how would we, put in percentages and stuff
yeah,
like that.
so I'm thinking that you have two diagrams here. The diagram you showed before was you can add effects to it as to different effects that might contribute to why a student bullies. Then you have this other diagram which says these are the incidents that occur in a school, and find some way of connecting them. Eventually, you don't need a refined model now. I'm just thinking the high level concepts. What would fit into it, and how you connect it to the real world, and then where the policies would be. So, if I was doing this, I'd go back and forth between the study, the initial diagrams you showed, and this model to see what might be important enough to put in here as an
Okay.
initial model.
So what I can do here is, I don't know how to make this, can't see the top, how to make this, oh, there we go, just an escape. So what I can
You
do,
cannot see it, but there's a few people with their hands up in Zoom. So I just want you to.
yes. Alan, did you want me to leave this page up for a minute for your comment? Alan, you're muted.
Yes, I was just wondering about where we could put in something about a school culture that might move to increase the number of teachers who are perceived as caring, and
Right.
maybe students as well, who are few, to make the outflow of potential bullying students go down. I think a lot of schools are trying to be proactive in changing the culture in that way, and
Right.
I'm not sure where that might go in the model, but I've been thinking about that as I've been looking at your good start here.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think the school culture is what's going to affect part of how teachers move from uncaring to caring. I think we might have another set of stocks above the caring and uncaring teachers that could be the school environment. And we didn't want to add too much extra immediately. But if you feel that that's really the next step, we could certainly put that in.
Yeah, maybe. Obviously it's my first look at this, but it seems to me that how to move those flows, what are going to be the things that make them more dynamic, to get the stocks moving along those flows.
Right, right. I agree. The environment, the school environment is going to have a huge impact on teachers moving from left to right here.
Mm-hmm.
Emre, did you want to say something? I'll put this back up to make it bigger.
I have some answers to the comments, but before that, I was thinking about the structure of this small model. It is very unrealistic, because independent of the number of bullying students, you can just put 100, all of them, and it just, in time, it will erode all of them or transfer all of them to non-bullying students. They are doomed to fail. But we do not see this dynamic in real life. There are bullying students and they stay bullies. So there is something lacking in this there should be something balancing. This is a very strong reinforcing loop. In the sense, it takes all bullies and make them non-bullies. It's very optimistic.
Right. It's actually, this is I think balancing to zero. It's pulling to zero because it's not accelerating, it's stabilizing, pulling everything over to the non-bullying. And you're right about that. I think some of that, this is simplistic. We know it's simplistic.
Yes.
But we had to start somewhere. And so we wanted two main ideas and a feedback between them. That's what we started. I was surprised that Emre could even get something to work at all, but that's because never underestimate Emre. Steve, did you want to say something?
Yeah, so first of all, my apologies. I'm on a tablet today, so I'm not quite used to this. But yeah, I think this is a comment that's very similar to Alan's and to Emre's as well, is that it feels to me that there should be some kind of force that is bringing the teachers that are perceived as caring back into being unperceived, not perceived. Right? We don't have any of that. All we have at the moment in the model is this feedback loop that involves a policy, right? Which is we're going to make an effort to change them, and the effort is always going to make them better. So, you know, it might be worth talking a little bit about what is it in a school that moves teachers in the opposite direction. I mean, this is a perception we're talking about. It's not about the teacher himself or herself. It's about the perception that the student has about that teacher. So what is it about what goes on in a school that makes students perceive that the teachers are not caring? So, that might be worth some discussion. I think part of that, the reason I say it's related to Alan's, I think part of that is the school environment.
Right.
School environment will impact how much of an effort there is to make a change. I mean, all of those things.
Right. And
So,
support the teachers. I mean, the whole idea
Right.
is, I mean, I've talked to teachers who have a disruptive student in class, they send them to the principal and the principal sends them right back, which really is unsupportive of teachers trying to exert discipline within their classes. So you're absolutely right. There has to be another piece that impacts the teachers and could have them move back and forth. That's why there's a byflow. But I think these byflows are overly simplistic. I really think they need to be separate inflows and outflows because I think policies impact differently. You know, different policies can impact differently, but you're right. You're absolutely right. And I think the school environment, maybe it's not reasonable to just start with two. Maybe we just really should have started with three. Kim?
Yes, so my comment is in the same vein as the other ones. Similarly, I admire your plunging into trying to make a runnable model of this complicated system, but I'm just feeling troubled by a number of teachers perceived as uncaring and number of teachers perceived as caring, because I feel as though that is saying that a teacher either doesn't care about any students or they do care about all students. And I think that probably the bullying dynamic comes in cases where individuals feel like the teacher doesn't care about me, but they do care about the other students. So I just want to, you know, introduce yet another, you know, way in which this differs from reality. Of course, all models differ from reality. I just feel like, you know, there's a certain element of the world is against me. You know, the teachers don't like me, as opposed to the teachers don't like students. So I don't think there's very many teachers in the world who don't like students, period, who don't care about any students. You know, I think the number of teachers who don't care about any students is very tiny because they leave the profession or don't go into the profession. You know, number of teachers perceived as uncaring about any students. that seems like a, almost an empty stock.
We could change the name of this stock on the left. Number of teachers perceived as perceived by the bullying students as uncaring.
I think that would be more accurate. It might be harder to work with, though. But-
Yeah, because then what would we do on the right side? So would we have the number of teachers perceived by the bully as caring? And would this feedback make sense? Well, it could make sense in drawing the bullies back to being potential bullies. I don't know if it would make sense as drawing the potential bullies into non-bullying. Maybe. We could put that in there. So what I'm saying here is, do you want me to get to an actual model? This is an interface, right? Do you want me to get to an actual model window so we can start putting these things in and making these changes? Because we can do that, and then I can incorporate it rather than just saying, yes, I see that, but we're just talking in the abstract. I'd rather actually start changing the model based on your input. Is that okay if I go to an actual model and start changing it based on what you're saying?
Diana, Brad, I think.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say, I'm getting to Brad. I see you, Brad. I just want to know where we should be, because we have ideas now that I am not incorporating in this model, and I don't want to lose them. Okay, I'll ask Brad. Go ahead, Brad.
So first of all, I really love this model. I love this model as a system dynamicist because I think it's rich with possibilities. And I actually have a different take on what the next step should be. I think the next step should be to explore the behavior of this model as we have it here. And because I don't think we understand it. I've heard Emre assert that this is unrealistic because if you start with a whole lot of bullies, they're eventually going to go away. He's probably right, but I'd like you to show me that in a simulation. I actually believe that what's really interesting here is that you have, so I guess I'm trying to say we should be celebrating the simplicity of this model and trying to understand what it can teach us. We will never be done adding things. I will be able to give you 5 more things to add once you think you've added everything that's been added here. Okay, it's never going to be done. So you have to follow the wisdom of Jim Hines and always be done. And I think that what's interesting to me is that the slope of these lines, so you said they're simplistic and they're probably not straight lines, but the slope of the line for the effort to make a change is essentially, in nerdy terms, defining the gain of that feedback loop. All of the things we just talked about changing the culture and the likelihood of responding, all of those things are things that would impact this system through changing the slope of that line. So rather than trying to figure out how to model culture, I wonder whether changing the slope of that line will make any difference in the behavior of the model. And likewise, there is another slope here about the fraction for the change in potential bullying students. And I think that the relative slopes of those two lines are sort of describing the war between the teachers and the bullies. And I would like to see if there's ways for one group to win or the other group to win or other things like that. And to do that, we'd have to run a lot of simulations where we change the parameter values or the slopes of those lines. And then we might identify some things about this structure that we don't particularly like before we start adding new ideas. I have lots of new ideas I'd like to add too, but I guess the mistake I think would be to just add more before you understand the model you have. So my thought is, yes, Diana, open up the model and then run some simulations, not open it up and add structure. But that's my 2 cents.
Okay, so we have, this is a simulation run on the right, correct? to the
Yeah,
model
I'm
the way
saying
it is.
that you need to do about 50 simulation runs to explore the behavior of the model, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And
So I want to know what happens if you double the slope of the effort to make a change.
okay.
I want to know
Well,
what happens if you double the slope of the, just double that slope
right,
and see what happens, right?
right. So obviously I would anticipate that things would happen a lot faster if you double the slope. So I actually have never,
I don't know how to do this in this software, so I'm just.
and I don't actually
I
know
put
how to,
an upper limit for 0.5 to be.
yeah.
So
I would have to, I
you
don't know
have to
how
change
to
it.
do this from here because I don't do it from
Right.
an interface. I do it from the model and I could
So
go
go
to
into
the
go into the model. Go into the
So-
model.
Please,
Yeah.
please, Diana, just because I suggested that does not mean you have to follow this. So if there's a lot of enthusiasm around trying to add structure to the model, then we can go there too. I'm just.
No, it's good to explore. It's good to explore the current model. I want to make one comment though. You can keep going, but I think sometimes it's important to look at why people become bullying students in any cause. Why is someone a bully? Period. I mean, they're expressing themselves in school, but why? And then what factors could change that? That's I'd want to understand that overall eventually.
Right. And that goes to the self, you
Yeah.
know, the diagram. So let me make this larger.
I mean, that could be for later, but I just wanted to say that was something one of the things I would explore in adding
Right.
to the model eventually.
Yeah.
You know,
So what I want to put here is probably it should be screenshot the most recent. Yes. And fit it, size to frame. This is something I think that's useful to have in front of us as and I suppose I could move this down further. And I could have the self one. I could have the self one, but I don't think I can do all this. Come on. This is the one you want to add some of these characteristics, Pascal, into the model, right? What
Yeah,
essentially moves students from potential bullies to bullying, right?
right.
Right. And
Because
so,
you might have bystanders who become bullies because they want to be close to the
Right.
bully, and stuff like that.
right. But to start, we
That's
have to start with something that we can actually do.
Yeah, I'm not saying do this now. We can continue with
No.
Brad's suggestion about going through and testing the current model.
Right. We'll move this down.
Then maybe he can give us the 5 things he'd add.
Okay, so I know school culture is here, and then just putting down here, I could do it as a text box. It wouldn't have to be a stock. Probably better not to be a stock. Make a text box here. Flesh out characteristics that impact potential bullies to become active bullies. That's what that would come from the self section of the diagram that we looked at before.
Right, and probably need to be expanded eventually, but it's good enough.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what
And-
causes them to become, what helps them become less bullying, overall? What, what's the factors that that can cause them to be, stop being bullies?
And then I want to capture what Kim said.
I have a transcript of this going, by the way, so I can share that with you later.
Right. Thank you.
Diana, are you writing something? I do not see.
Oh, I guess I'm sorry about that. You're right. I am writing something, and I
There's
am.
one screen, not the whole.
Yeah, let me, I know what. Can I, oh, what it did. Okay, I've got to stop sharing the screen that I'm glad that you said something. Here I was thinking that everything was working within. Here we go. So this is what I was doing.
Uh-huh.
I went to the actual model. Thank you, Emre.
Good.
Here I am thinking I'm doing everything people are watching, and it's like, okay, you're talking, but I don't see anything happening. What I did was I went to the graphics window and incorporated the concept map from Pascal's concept map, dealing with the environment of the school. And then I added school culture up here because it was mentioned at least twice, once by Steve, and again, I think Al mentioned that if we're going to impact teachers, the school culture is going to be critical. I included teachers should be identified as perceived by the bully as caring or not caring. That was by Kim. And and then Pascal's idea that really we need another section down here that is more rich from probably the self diagram that Pascal has for us, that to flesh out the characteristics that impact bullies to become active and what causes bullies to stop bullying. So that would be a fleshing out underneath here for moving backwards and forwards. But I think having a biflow is too simplistic. I think we would need an outflow from this stock to this stock and an inflow separate, because I think what impacts them is different. Movements could be different. So I think this is too simplistic, having biflows here. We actually, in our second SIG meeting, did have separate inflows and outflows, but we simplified it to biflows because visually it's easier to understand right from the beginning. So I could put a graph in here. And what would we want to graph? Come on. What do we want to look at? Just, I don't think we can have all the graphs that we had on the interface, but really maybe it's just the bullying students and the potential bullying.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all on the same scale, so I think I'm okay. I have to tell you that I really like grid lines. I think it's the math person in me. Okay. So, I mean, we could play around with some different ideas here. The other thing is these are only graphical converters. They are not dimensionless multipliers, and I am a lot more comfortable with dimensionless multipliers. So if I were trying to make this, at least for me, a stronger model, I would make each of these dimensionless multipliers, and then we're comparing to some kind of a baseline, being above the baseline or below the baseline. It's easier for me to think about it when they're dimensionless multipliers. However, we can just have more conversation and add more pieces to this. We actually have only 13 minutes left, but we could go on longer than that, but I'm not sure that would be that useful, but we will for people who want to stay. Is there anyone else that would like to offer? I think what we can do is play with this, change the wording a little bit here, play with it for a while, as Brad suggests. And then the next thing I would add would be school culture, because I think it just, it impacts teachers so much that, and this is the kind of what we consider the main idea in helping bullies to feel less aggressive. Teachers are the first line of defense, the first line of change, I think. And school culture is going to impact the teachers. So eventually we need to talk about that. Okay, Steve, you want to say something?
Yeah, yeah, just quickly. I wonder if two things. One is I put in the chat earlier. I wonder if we could put a version of this model at this stage up on the IC Exchange site so people could explore it later on. That's number one.
And Emre has done that.
Okay, great. And number two is I would love to do what Brad asked, which is to go in and change the slopes on some of these things, or maybe even change them to look like hill functions, as sort of logistic curves, and just kind of see what that does to the model.
Right, because we are never going to get rid of all the bullies. So there may be an initial steeper impact, but it might level off. We'll never get to all of them. And so that could be indicated within this particular effort to make change, or coming here. Maybe it would be in the fraction of change for bullying students. We will never get them all to move over, probably there then, where we would play with different graphs. So yes, Emre, have you put in the chat? Sorry, I know you want to say something.
Yes, I was to say the same thing, so we can go on. And one more thing, maybe in IC Systems Exchange site, the interface do not has the formulas, not very complicated formulas, but if needed to be done, I can put another button, or when you check it, you can see the formulas of each flow and one converter.
You know what?
If you download the model, will it have the complete model from IC Exchange? I mean, you can make it downloadable so people can actually get the whole model, I
I
think.
can upload the model, yes, of course.
Yeah, and then we can download it and take a look.
But everybody should have architect Stella to open it.
Well, yes, because obviously you only get 3 stocks, right? And we've already got 5. So you would have to have Stella Architect. You cannot open this in Stella Online. I took a picture of the number of people who are here right now. So if we have your email, well, we will, won't we, Emre? Will we have access to everyone's email?
Well, I know most of the people, so I think Maria, Sarah,
Brad, who's Dr. Ozkan? Kim,
Well, maybe I don't know. Brad,
Sarah. I think there are only 2 or 3 people we don't know.
and probably they are on the list, the sending list of our email list. So, Serap just said, okay.
Okay. So are they, oh, good. They're putting their emails in the chat. Thank you. What we could do is just email it to you. We can email the model to you. But like Emre said, you're going to have Stella Architect. You're not going to be able to open it up in Stella Online.
There is one more way. You can just upload it to Stella Online, but you cannot change or edit anything on it. But you can run it as it is, and you can see the formulas and how they are connected. But you cannot add anything or delete, remove anything.
Okay. So we don't have much time left. And it seems as if a few people have indicated we should play with this model more, which is, I think, a good idea. And then on your own, you could add the school culture piece. You could add more characteristics that move students between these aging chain kind of stocks. And then we could talk about this again and see what people have come up with. What do you think we should do next?
It'd also be good to have that diagrams I had. If anyone's going to change the model, look at it. It'd be good to have those diagrams. Just to
Well, I think we put those diagrams
That's
on our webpage, the System Dynamics Society webpage. I think they're there.
And also in the last tab of the interface, we have those diagrams.
Okay, good.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So you go up here to the interface, and all the diagrams are on the interface under presentation. Come on, right? They're all right here. And the references.
But we are still, this is another window. I think we cannot see it.
Oh, okay. I guess I'm just, all right. I'm sorry. You're right. Stop share. Start share. I don't know why I'm so slow at this particular process. Must be that. Is that it? Yeah. So in the model that you can download, this interface is there. Again, if Stella Online does not have an interface. So all of these are the different pages of Pascal's diagrams for reference. And I really like the fact that we have so much detail in these diagrams to give you plenty of food for thought if you wanted to expand the small model at some point. All right.
And I think the references also have references to South Beach software.
You do.
Yeah, I think, and also the language itself, the references. Yeah.
Where is the South Beach?
Let's see, I thought it did. Right there, applications I use to create it. Right?
Oh, there, right there.
And then the modeler plus a notation.
Okay, so that's there as well. Okay. So what I would like to know, because we have 5 minutes left here, what do you want to do next? Do you want to come together later in the year and we can see what different people have done and move forward? I knew that we were never going to get a final model in 2 stages, but we had to start somewhere.
So what I'd like to do is that later this year is to have a session like this for the psychology SIG. you know, psychology and behavior SIG, in which we'll just take whatever is there and just, you know, before I would enhance the model beforehand, then present the enhancement, and see what people say from a different point of view.
Well, I think that's great. Having more people with different backgrounds look at the model is extremely helpful. But what about this audience? Emery, what did you want to say?
Well, maybe we can try Brett's suggestion. We can try to create an oscillation within this model, or a kind of a collapse, not the bullies, but the non-bullies, for example. Try to create different behaviors.
Dynamics.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So that could be our task, but people would not be restricted to that task if they wanted to add some more. So do we want to come together again and talk about this some more or not? I'm going to wait you out.
I would find that interesting.
Okay. Brad would find it interesting. Anybody else?
Me too.
Okay. Me three.
I already find it interesting. So you hooked me on this one when you asked me to do this. So
Which was a real stroke of luck for us, having you connected with this, because you have brought a great deal of information and skill getting us off the ground here. We are really in your debt, Pascal. Thank you so much. Okay. Is there a time like, okay, we can't do it in August, we can't do it in September. September's a webinar. We could do it in October. November will be a webinar. Or December. Well, we don't usually do anything in December, but we could. So it's either November. Let's just do November. How about that?
Okay.
Okay. November, our major SIG meeting in November is on bullying. We'll see where we've gone since this time. What people have experimented with. We'll show some experiments. If people have added more detail, we can show some of that. And we can make those available to everyone. All right? Okay.
Then should I create, or I already created, but should I share the Miro board until that time?
Yes.
We can just develop or put something in it.
You want to create a Miro board for what?
For collaboration or for communication until November, because several months from now. So maybe it might be an indirect communication.
Right. So Emre will let us, he'll set up a Miro board. He's quite good at Miro boards. He's pretty amazing at how he sets things up organized wise. He'll set up a Miro board. He will give us the links to the IC Systems interface and the actual model that can be downloaded so people can play with it. So he will send those three things to all of the people who are here, who have either given us their email or we know already. Okay? Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming. I think we're making really good progress. It's slow, but that's okay. You know, I think the topic is important. So moving along is important.
Yes.
All right. I think that's it. Pascal, thanks again.
Thank you.
You have been invaluable in this process. All right. See you all
Bye-bye.
later, whenever you come back.